A beggar girl grabs a millionaire's arm at the airport and shouts desperately, "Sir, don't get on that plane, it's going to crash." 1 hour later, everyone at the airport was shocked by what happened. Leave your thoughts in the comments before finding out how this story ends, and watch until the very end. Thank you so much. If this story interested you, subscribe to our channel. Don't forget to like this video and tell us which city you're watching us from. We'll keep going. The late afternoon sun streamed through the massive windows of Guarulhos International Airport, casting a golden mosaic across the polished marble floors. Lucas Mendonça strode purposefully through the main terminal, his Italian leather shoes echoing in perfect rhythm as a small entourage of assistants trailed behind him, each clutching tablets and phones. At 45, Lucas carried himself with the assured confidence of someone accustomed to controlling time itself. His perfectly tailored suit and carefully groomed silver-peppered hair projected the image he had spent decades cultivating, that of Brazil's most successful tech innovator, a man who had built an artificial intelligence empire from nothing. Caroline. Martinez, his executive assistant of 5 years, walked slightly ahead, orchestrating the final details of their trip while speaking rapidly into her phone. "Yes, the jet has been checked. I personally verified the complete inspection this morning," she was saying, her high heels matching Lucas's brisk pace. Lucas's stern expression reflected the weight of the empire he had built. LM Tech had revolutionized Brazil's artificial intelligence market, and now he was preparing to announce their international expansion. The flight to New York would bring him face-to-face with investors, eagerly awaiting their meeting tomorrow morning. "Have the merger documents been reviewed by the legal team?" Lucas asked without breaking stride or looking back. "Everything's ready, sir," Caroline responded efficiently. "The contract is finalized and the investors have confirmed for tomorrow at 9. The typical airport bustle was occasionally punctuated by overhead announcements of departing flights. Some passengers recognized Lucas. His face had graced numerous business magazine covers in recent months, and whispered among themselves. A small group of photographers, who always seemed to know his whereabouts, began approaching. Then something unusual happened. A high, desperate voice cut through the air like an arrow. "Don't get on that plane!" Lucas stopped abruptly, causing 2 of his assistants to nearly collide with each other. Through the gathering crowd, a small figure stood out. A girl, no more than 8 years old, wore a faded dress and worn sandals. Her dark hair was disheveled, but her eyes shone with a disturbing intensity. "Sir, let's continue," Caroline said, positioning herself between Lucas and the girl. "It's probably just someone looking for attention." But something was different. The girl began crossing the security cordon that was forming, her bare feet sliding across the cold marble. "Flight LM047 cannot take off," she shouted again, her voice carrying an urgency that made Lucas furrow his brow. "There's something wrong." With the fuel tank on the right side near the red mark, Lucas felt a chill run down his spine. That information was confidential. The red mark was a specific detail of his private jet, visible only during maintenance. Airport security was already moving to contain the girl, but Lucas raised his hand, signaling them to stop. "Wait," he commanded, his authoritative voice, freezing everyone in place. "How do you know about that?" The girl stood a few meters from him, her eyes fixed on his with a disconcerting intensity. "I saw it," she answered simply. "I saw it in my dreams. And I saw what will happen if you get on that plane today." Caroline stepped forward, her expression a mixture of irritation and concern. "Mr. Mendonça, we're running late. We can't—" "Cancel all appointments for the next 2 hours," Lucas interrupted, without taking his eyes off the girl. Something about this child, this absurd situation, demanded his attention. In 20 years of building his empire, Lucas had learned to trust his instincts, and at that moment his instincts were screaming that something extraordinary was happening. "What's your name?" he asked, bending slightly to meet the girl's height. "Sophia," she answered, her voice now softer, almost a whisper. "And I know. You don't believe in dreams or premonitions, Mr. Lucas Mendonça, but today you need to believe." A small crowd had gathered around them, Phones pointed at the unusual scene of the billionaire conversing with a barefoot girl in the middle of the airport. Caroline typed furiously on her phone, probably trying to manage the chaos this delay would cause in the schedule. Lucas stood up slowly, his analytical mind struggling against an inexplicable feeling that this moment was far more significant than it seemed. He turned to his team and gave an order that surprised everyone. "I want a complete inspection of the jet. Now." The airport's maintenance center buzzed with unusual activity for that time of day. Lucas Mendonça stood, arms crossed, watching the technical team meticulously examining his private jet. Sophia sat on a nearby bench, her legs dangling, in the air, while two security guards discreetly observed her. Caroline approached Lucas, her usual composure slightly shaken. "Sir, the investors in New York are furious. They won't accept rescheduling the meeting for tomorrow." "They'll have to accept," Lucas responded dryly, without taking his eyes off the inspection. His mind was still trying to process how that girl could know such specific details about his aircraft. "With all due respect," Caroline insisted, lowering her voice, "you're putting $1 billion deal at risk because of what?" a street girl said. Lucas finally turned to face her. There was something in his gaze that Caroline had never seen before, a mixture of intuition and distrust that made her take a step back. "You personally verified the maintenance this morning, didn't you, Caroline?" "Yes, sir, as I always do," she answered, nervously adjusting her glasses. "Then explain to me how she could know about the red mark on the fuel tank. That information isn't in any public manual." Before Caroline could respond, one of the technicians approached hurriedly, wiping sweat from his forehead with his sleeve. "Mr. Mendonça," he began, his face showing concern, "you need to see this." Lucas followed the technician to the fuel tank area, exactly where Sophia had indicated. The man pointed to a partially exposed set of valves. "We found signs of tampering here. Someone altered the fuel pressurization system. Under normal flight conditions, this could cause a catastrophic failure," Lucas completed, feeling a chill down his spine. He turned to where Sophia was sitting, only to find her already watching him, her large dark eyes carrying a weight that seemed far beyond her years. "How?" he muttered to himself. "How did you know?" Sophia got down from the bench and walked over to him, her bare feet making a soft sound against the hangar floor. "I always know things," she said simply, "but not everyone wants to listen." Lucas noticed that her clothes were not just worn but dirty, as if she had been living on the streets for a long time. Her face, despite the dirt, maintained an expression of wisdom that deeply intrigued him. "Where are your parents?" he asked, trying to keep his voice gentle so as not to frighten her. A flash of sadness crossed the girl's face. "They're gone, long gone. Now it's just me and my dreams." Caroline watched the scene from afar, her face a mask of concern as she furiously typed on her phone. Lucas noticed that she seemed more agitated than normal, her fingers trembling slightly over the screen. "Sir," called another technician, "we found something else. It seems the navigation system was also tampered with. Someone tried to mask the modifications, but left traces." Lucas felt his analytical mind begin to work. This wasn't just a technical defect, it was sabotage. Someone had meticulously planned an accident. But who? And why? He knelt in front of Sophia, ignoring the dust that stained his Italian suit. "Did you see anything else in your dreams? Something about who did this?" Sophia bit her lip, hesitant. "There are people close to you who aren't what they seem," she whispered, casting a furtive glance beyond him. "But if I tell everything now, they'll try to stop me. And there are still more things I need to prevent." Lucas felt a chill run down his spine. In his 20 years of career, he had learned to trust data, numbers, and logic. But now an inexplicable force was pushing him into unknown territory, guided by a child who seemed to carry secrets greater than her apparent age. "Do you have somewhere to sleep?" he asked, already knowing the answer. Sophia shook her head. "The airport is my home. I know all the corners, all the secrets. That's how I survive." Lucas stood up, making a decision that he knew would change much more than just his day's schedule. "Caroline," he called, "cancel all my appointments this week. And contact the police and social services. We need to understand how a child is living alone in this airport." What Lucas didn't notice was the brief flash of panic that crossed his assistant's eyes at the mention of authorities. Lucas's office. In the airport's administrative building was a stark contrast to the reality Sophia lived in. While the girl timidly settled into a leather armchair, her dirty feet barely touching the immaculate carpet, Lucas watched the movement of planes on the runway through the window. "Sir," Caroline entered hurriedly, "I've made contact with social worker Helena Barros. She's on her way." Sophia immediately straightened in the chair, her eyes wide with apprehension. "I don't want to go to a shelter," she said, her voice firm despite the evident fear. "They won't understand. I need to stay here. I need to—" "Nobody will force you to do anything," Lucas interrupted gently. "But we need to understand how you got here, Sophia. A child can't live alone in an airport." Caroline cleared her throat discreetly. "Sir, if you'll allow me while we wait for the social worker, we have urgent matters to resolve. The matter of the sabotage." "Yes," Lucas interrupted, his eyes narrowing slightly. "The sabotage. Very convenient that you personally checked the maintenance this morning and didn't notice anything wrong, isn't it, Caroline?" "Are you implying something, sir?" she asked, her voice trembling slightly. "I'm not implying anything, Caroline. I'm just stating facts. You're the only person besides the technicians who had access to information about the jet, including the red mark that Sophia mentioned." Sophia, who observed the exchange in silence, hugged her knees. "People lie," she murmured almost to herself, "but dreams don't." Caroline took a step toward the door. "I'll check if the social worker has arrived," she said quickly, but Lucas stopped her. "Stay," he ordered, his voice taking on the authoritative tone he rarely used. "I want you to be present when the police arrive. They'll have many questions about the jet's maintenance." Caroline's face visibly paled. She opened her mouth to respond, but was interrupted by a knock at the door. A middle-aged woman, wearing a simple blazer and carrying a folder, entered the room. "Helena Barros, social worker," she introduced herself, her gaze immediately fixing on Sophia. "I was informed about a minor in a vulnerable situation." Sophia shrank further into the chair, her eyes seeking Lucas's in a silent plea for help. He noticed that despite her fear, she didn't seem surprised, as if she already knew exactly what was coming. "Before any decision," Lucas intervened, "we need to clarify some things. This girl possibly prevented an accident today. She has important information about an attempted sabotage." Helena frowned, confused. "Sabotage? That's a matter for the police, not for a child." "The police are already on their way," Lucas informed, noticing how Caroline held her purse with excessive force. "And I believe we'll all have a lot to explain." Sophia stood up suddenly, her small figure emanating an urgency that drew all eyes. "She's going to try to escape," she said simply, pointing to Caroline. At that same moment, Caroline made a sudden move toward the door, but Lucas was faster. With a gesture, he called the security guards who were waiting outside. "Nobody leaves. This room until the police arrive," he ordered, his voice cutting through the air like steel. "We have a lot to clarify, and I believe my assistant has some explanations to give." Caroline, cornered, let her purse fall. A brown envelope slipped out, scattering photographs across the floor. Lucas bent down to pick them up and felt his blood freeze. They were photos of him, his jet, his routines, all taken without his knowledge. "It's not what it seems," Caroline began to say, her voice trembling. "I can explain." "You will explain," Lucas interrupted, "but not to me. The authorities should be arriving now." Sophia, who watched everything with surprising calmness, approached Lucas and held his hand. "This is just the beginning," she whispered. "There are more people involved. Powerful people." Lucas squeezed the small, dirty hand that held his, feeling a strange sensation that his life had changed irrevocably that afternoon. The mystery of Sophia, how she knew things, why she was there, and what her true story was just the tip of something much bigger and more dangerous than he could imagine. Night was falling over São Paulo when Lucas finally got a moment of peace in his office. The last few hours had been a whirlwind of testimonies, documents, and partial revelations. Caroline was in custody for questioning, but her silence about her possible handlers was disturbing. Sophia remained by his side, now wearing clean clothes that one of the airport staff had provided, a simple blue dress and new sandals. Her dark hair, after a bath, revealed natural curls that framed her face in an almost angelic way. "I can't go to a shelter," she repeated for the third time, while Helena Barros organized some papers in her folder. "They'll find me there." "Who will find you, Sophia?" Helena asked gently, exchanging a worried look with Lucas. "We need to know who you fear to properly protect you." "I still can't say," Sophia repeated softly. "But they've been looking for me since that day." At that moment, Ricardo Torres, LM Tech's vice president, burst into the room, his normally serene face contorted into a mask of concern. "Lucas, what's this story about sabotage? Why wasn't I informed? Immediately?" Sophia instantly positioned herself behind Lucas, grabbing the hem of his jacket. Her reaction didn't go unnoticed by him. "We're handling the situation, Ricardo," Lucas responded, cautiously, instinctively placing a protective hand on Sophia's shoulder. "Caroline is in custody and—" "Caroline?" Ricardo interrupted, his voice rising an octave. "Our Caroline? This is absurd. She's been loyal to the company for years." "Apparently," Lucas responded dryly, "loyalty has a price." Ricardo ran his fingers through his graying hair, his gaze alternating between Lucas and Sophia. "And who is this little girl? What does she have to do with all this?" "She's my protégé now," Lucas declared firmly, "and thanks to her, I'm alive." Sophia pulled slightly on Lucas's jacket, calling his attention. When he bent down to hear her, she whispered, "He pretends to be worried, but his eyes show anger. He doesn't like that I'm here." Lucas straightened slowly, observing his vice. President with new eyes. Indeed, there was something in Ricardo's gaze that didn't match his words of concern. "Helena," Lucas called without taking his eyes off Ricardo, "could you arrange the guardianship papers? And as for you, Ricardo, I suggest you return to the office. Tomorrow we'll have a board meeting to discuss all this." Ricardo adjusted his expensive tie, a gesture that Lucas knew well. It was his way of regaining composure. Of course, but Lucas, be careful. Sometimes things are not what they seem." After Ricardo left, Sophia visibly relaxed. "He knows the bad people," she said simply. "The people who want to hurt you." Lucas knelt in front of her, their eyes at the same level. "Sophia, I need you to trust me. Who are these people?" She gently touched his face, a surprisingly mature gesture for her age. "I still can't tell you everything, but I promise I'll protect you, just like you're protecting me now." Helena, who had observed the interaction in silence, cleared her throat softly. "I'll prepare the temporary guardianship papers, but Mr. Mendonça, I suggest taking extra security precautions. This story is getting increasingly complex." Lucas nodded, feeling the weight of the responsibility he had just assumed. It wasn't just about protecting a child. It was about unraveling a conspiracy that seemed to extend far beyond the sabotage of his plane. And at the center of it all was this mysterious little girl with her prophetic dreams and eyes that seemed to carry the weight of the world. "And what about the other children?" Sophia asked suddenly. "What other children?" Lucas and Helena asked simultaneously. Sophia looked at them with eyes full of unshed tears. "The ones they're keeping hidden, the ones they're using for their experiments. That's why they're looking for me, because I can see what they're doing." Lucas felt his blood run cold. The implications of what Sophia was suggesting were terrifying. If what she was saying was true, this went far beyond corporate sabotage. This was something much darker, much more sinister. The sound of footsteps in the corridor made them all tense. Jorge, the head of security, entered with new information. "Sir, the initial investigation of Caroline revealed some disturbing details. She had been making regular transfers to an account in the Cayman Islands." "How much?" Lucas asked, his mind already racing with possibilities. "Millions," Jorge answered, handing over a report. "And there's more. We found records of encrypted communications between her and some numbers associated with LM Tech executives." Ricardo, Lucas murmured, remembering his vice president's exaggerated reaction. Sophia hugged herself tightly, her small frame trembling slightly. "They're going to try something tomorrow," she whispered. "At the board meeting. I can see it in my dreams." Lucas exchanged worried glances with Jorge. Something big was unfolding, something that threatened not just his company, but possibly the lives of innocent children. And somehow, this small girl had become the key to uncovering it all. The Caet Mendonça mansion occupied an entire block in São Paulo's most exclusive neighborhood. Through the enormous glass windows, Lucas observed the city he had helped build with its imposing skyscrapers. At 58 years old, he had conquered everything money could buy: imported cars, art worth millions, international trips, and a business empire that kept growing. That morning, while savoring his premium Colombian coffee, Lucas was distracted by movement near his bedroom door. Sophia stood there, hesitant, still wearing the new pajamas Maria, his housekeeper of 20 years, had bought for her. "Had another dream?" he asked gently, recognizing the troubled look in her eyes. Sophia nodded, entering the room slowly. "About the board meeting today. They're planning something bad." Lucas pulled out a chair for her at the breakfast table. Maria appeared almost instantly with a plate of fresh fruit and warm bread. "The poor thing barely slept," Maria whispered to Lucas. "I heard her walking in her room most of the night." Sophia picked at her food without much enthusiasm. "Mr. Ricardo, he has meetings at night, in places where children disappear." Lucas felt his stomach tighten. Over the past day, he had his security team investigate every aspect of Ricardo Torres's life. The initial findings were disturbing: unexplained money transfers, mysterious meetings, and a past that seemed carefully constructed. "Sophia," he began carefully, "I need you to tell me everything you know about these children." The girl's hands trembled slightly as she reached for her glass of milk. "They're like me, special. They can see things, know things, but the bad people, they use them for experiments. They want to control their gifts." A knock on the door interrupted them. Jorge entered carrying a thick folder. "Sir, we found something about Ricardo's past. His real name is Thomas Richter. He's been using a false identity for at least 15 years. Lucas absorbed the information while watching Sophia. She didn't seem surprised by the revelation. "I saw him in my dreams," she said quietly. "Before he changed his name, when he worked at the orphanage." "What orphanage?" Lucas asked sharply. "Santo Antonio, where they first started the experiments, where they learned that some children were different." Maria, who had returned with more coffee, crossed herself instinctively. "Lord have mercy." Jorge cleared his throat uncomfortably. "There's more, sir. We found a connection between Ricardo, or Thomas, and a series of child disappearances in 3 different states. All the cases were archived without resolution." Lucas stood up abruptly, walking to the window. The city stretched out before him, beautiful and oblivious to the darkness he was uncovering. How had his company become involved in something so sinister? "The board meeting is in 2 hours," he said finally. "Sophia, I want you to stay here with Maria. Jorge will double the security around the house." "No," Sophia jumped up from her chair. "You can't go alone. They're going to try to hurt you." "She's right, sir," Jorge interjected. "It's too risky. We don't know how many people are involved in this." Lucas knelt in front of Sophia, looking into her eyes that seemed to carry wisdom far beyond her years. "What exactly did you see in your dream about the meeting?" "They're going to try to trap you," she whispered. "They have documents, false evidence. They want to make you look bad, make people think you're the one hurting children." Lucas felt a chill run down his spine. It made perfect sense. Discredit him before he could expose them. Classic corporate manipulation, but with much higher stakes than mere money. "Then we'll have to be smarter than them," he said, an idea forming in his mind. "Jorge, contact Helena Barros. Tell her to bring all the documentation she has about the Santo Antonio orphanage. And Maria." "Yes, sir?" "Prepare Sophia's best dress. She's coming with me to the meeting." "But sir," Jorge protested, "isn't that too dangerous?" "They won't expect me to bring her," Lucas explained. "They think she's just a scared child, but she's our best weapon. She can see through their lies. Sophia straightened her small shoulders, a determined look crossing her face. I'm not afraid of them anymore, not when I'm with you. Lucas felt a surge of protective instinct, mixed with admiration for this child's courage. In less than 2 days, she had completely transformed his world, making him see beyond profits and power to something much more important: justice. As Maria led Sophia away to get ready, Lucas turned to Jorge. Have our best security team ready and contact Marina. At the office, tell her to prepare the conference room security footage. I want every minute of this meeting recorded. Looking at his reflection in the window, Lucas hardly recognized himself. The cold, calculating businessman was gone, replaced by someone ready to fight for something bigger than money. Someone ready to protect not just Sophia, but all the children like her who had been victims of this dark conspiracy. The LM Tech headquarters seemed different that morning. As Lucas's car pulled into the underground garage, Sophia pressed her face against the bulletproof window, her eyes scanning the shadows between the concrete pillars. 3 men are hiding behind the columns, she whispered. They're waiting to see if you came alone. Jorge made a discreet hand signal, and immediately 3 of his trusted agents emerged from strategic points, neutralizing the threat before it could materialize. Impressive, Lucas murmured, watching the operation through the security monitors installed in the car. They're not the only ones, Sophia continued, her eyes seeming to see through the concrete walls. There are more people positioned on the floors, but they're not all bad. Some are being deceived. The private elevator took them directly to the executive floor. When the doors opened, Ricardo Torres was already waiting for them, his artificial smile freezing momentarily when he saw Sophia. Lucas, he exclaimed, quickly recovering. I didn't know we'd be bringing children to such an important meeting. Sophia is my special guest today, Lucas responded calmly, feeling the small hand squeeze his in warning. I hope the board won't mind. Of course, Ricardo forced another smile, but his eyes studied Sophia with disturbing intensity. The meeting starts in 20 minutes. Care for some coffee? No, thank you, Lucas declined, remembering Sophia's warning. I need to resolve some things in my office first. As they walked down the corridor, Sophia kept her eyes fixed on the gold ring with a red stone that Ricardo wore, the same one from her visions. Lucas noticed that she was trembling slightly. What do you see? He whispered when they entered his office. That ring. There's blood on it, she answered, her voice barely audible. It's not his. It belonged to the man he used to be. Before. He stole another life. Before Lucas could fully process the meaning of those words, his phone vibrated with a message from Helena. Found it. Ricardo Torres doesn't exist. The man in the old photos is Thomas Richter, wanted for fraud in 3 states. He posed as a social worker to gain access to children in orphanages. I'm bringing the documents to you now. Lucas felt his stomach turn. Sophia, did you know about this? She nodded sadly. In my dreams, I see him with many names, many faces. Daddy discovered who he really was, and that's why... She stopped, tears shining in her eyes. Jorge entered silently into the office. Sir, Helena is on her way with police escort, and our agents have identified 3 more suspicious men on the meeting floor. Let them be, Sophia suddenly intervened. We need them to think they're in control. Only then will they make the mistake we're waiting for. Lucas knelt in front of his protege. What mistake, Sophia? What did you see? They're going to try to use my dream power today, she explained, her small hands holding the necklace she wore. During the meeting, but they don't know that Daddy left a protection in the system, one that only works with our blood. Lucas blinked in surprise. Your father? Who was he? Sophia's eyes filled with tears she refused to let fall. Someone who tried to stop them. Someone who knew too much. That's why they... She couldn't finish the sentence. Helena's arrival interrupted the heavy moment. She carried a stack of old files, her face showing a mixture of horror and determination. It's worse than we imagined, she said without preamble. The Santo Antonio orphanage was just the beginning. There's a whole network, operating for years, selecting children with special abilities. Lucas felt his world spinning. His company, which he had built from nothing, had somehow become entangled in something monstrous. And this small girl, who had appeared so mysteriously in his life, might be the key to exposing it all. "Sophia," he said gently, "I promise you this ends today. No more children will suffer because of these people." She looked at him with those old eyes in her young face. "Be careful with the coffee they'll offer in the meeting," she warned. "And whatever happens, don't let them see how much you already... No, the surprise has to be ours, not theirs." As the time for the meeting approached, Lucas felt the weight of what they were about to do. This wasn't just about saving his company anymore. It was about justice, about protecting innocent children, about making right something that had gone terribly wrong. Sophia took his hand as they walked toward the conference room. "Remember," she whispered, "when everything seems lost, that's when we'll be closest to winning." The LM Tech conference room was an imposing space, with a massive mahogany oval table and black leather chairs. Through the 40th floor windows, São Paulo stretched as far as the eye could see. When Lucas entered with Sophia, 12 pairs of eyes turned to them with expressions ranging from surprise to poorly disguised hostility. "Ladies and gentlemen," Lucas began, keeping his voice firm while indicating a chair for Sophia beside him, "thank you for your presence at this extraordinary meeting." Ricardo Torres shifted uneasily in his chair at the other end of the table. "Lucas, with all due respect, a board meeting is no place for children." "Sophia is my special guest," Lucas responded calmly, "and I believe she has as much interest in this company's future as any of us." Alberto Mendez, the financial director, nervously cleared his throat while adjusting his expensive tie. "Well, let's get to what matters. We have concerning reports about attempted sabotage." "Interesting that you mentioned that, Alberto," Lucas interrupted, noticing how Sophia carefully observed the man, especially considering the suspicious movements. "We've identified in the company's offshore accounts." A tense silence fell over the room. Sophia discreetly sent a message on the cell phone Lucas had given her, the word "angel" to Maria, initiating whatever plan she had prepared. "I don't know what you're talking about," Alberto responded, but his voice trembled slightly. "I think you do," Sophia said suddenly, her childish voice carrying a surprising authority. "Just like you know about the Santo Antonio orphanage, don't you, Mr. Thomas?" Ricardo, or Thomas, visibly paled. Who are you?" "She's my goddaughter," Lucas announced, causing a wave of surprised murmurs. "And she has some very interesting stories to tell about the true purpose of what's been happening in this company." At that moment, the lights in the room flickered briefly. Sophia smiled as if expecting this. "It's starting," she whispered to Lucas. Ricardo stood up abruptly. "This is absurd. This meeting is about the attempt to sabotage your plane, Lucas. A sabotage, I might add, that your own assistant confessed to planning." "After being pressured by you," Lucas retorted. "We have recordings of your visits to the police station, Ricardo. Or should I say, Thomas?" Chaos began to take over the room. Some board members stood up, confused, while others remained seated, watching the scene with calculated interest. "The system is being hacked." An IT technician burst into the room, his face pale. "Someone is trying to access restricted files." Sophia squeezed Lucas's hand hard. "It's time," she whispered. "They need to think they succeeded." Before Lucas could react, Ricardo pulled out a gun, causing panic in the room. "Enough games," he shouted. "The girl comes with me, now!" "You won't touch her." Lucas stepped in front of Sophia, but she gently pushed him aside. "It's okay, Uncle Lucas," she said calmly. "This is how it needed to happen." "Sophia, no." "Listen to your goddaughter, Lucas," Ricardo smiled coldly. "She seems to be the only sensible one here. Come, child, you have important work to do." Sophia walked slowly toward Ricardo, her small white blazer contrasting with the chaos that had taken over the room. Some board members tried to escape, but armed men blocked the exits. "You think you've won," Sophia said softly to Ricardo, "but you forgot something very important about the company's security system." "And what would that be?" he asked with disdain. "Daddy always said, angels guard the most important secrets." At that exact moment, The screens on the walls of the meeting room simultaneously lit up, displaying dozens of documents, photos, and reports. Ricardo's, or Thomas's, face appeared in all of them, along with records of his crimes over the years. "Impossible," he shouted. "The system is locked." "Not for an angel," Sophia smiled, touching her necklace. "And you should have paid more attention to details, Thomas, like this small transmission device in my necklace, for example." Lucas observed, stunned, as his small protege conducted the checkmate she had planned from the beginning. The screens continued displaying an endless cascade of evidence while chaos took over the conference room. Ricardo Thomas maintained the gun pointed, but his face had lost all pretense of confidence, replaced by a mixture of rage and fear. "How?" he growled, his eyes fixed on Sophia. "How did you access these files?" Sophia remained incredibly calm for a child under gunpoint. "The necklace," she explained, touching the small angel pendant. "It's not just a transmitter, it's a biometric key. Daddy knew that one day I would need it." Lucas, maintaining himself tense but alert, began to understand. "The plan." "The DNA," he murmured. "Your father programmed the system to recognize only family DNA." "Exactly," Sophia confirmed. "And when Mr. Thomas here tried to force access to the restricted files, he activated the emergency protocol that Daddy created." The screens now showed images of the Santo Antonio orphanage, children in dark corridors, falsified documents, records of suspicious adoptions. And in every document, Thomas Richter's name appeared connected to a network of crimes that extended for years. "You don't understand," Thomas said, his voice trembling with anger. "Those children were special, like her." He pointed to Sophia. "The company's secret research wasn't just about technology, it was about evolution, about creating something greater." "Using innocent children as guinea pigs," Lucas completed, his face contorted with disgust. Sophia took a small step forward. "You thought you were the only one who knew the secrets, didn't you? But Daddy discovered everything. That's why you ordered the fire at our house." Thomas laughed bitterly. "Your father was a foolish idealist. He didn't see the potential of what we had discovered. Children with special gifts, unique abilities. Imagine the power of artificial intelligence fed by minds like these." "Minds of kidnapped children," Sophia corrected softly. "Like the others, you still keep hidden until today." A heavy silence fell over the room. Lucas felt his heart stop for a moment. "There are others?" "Of course there are." A new voice sounded from the door. Helena Barros entered the room, accompanied by heavily armed police officers. In her hands, a thick folder overflowed with documents. "And we just found them." Thomas tried to turn to aim his gun at the newcomer, but Sophia was faster. With a fluid movement, she threw her necklace to the floor. The small gold angel shattered, releasing a bluish light that immediately transformed all the room's screens into a mosaic of codes and images. "Angel Guardian Protocol activated," a computerized voice announced, "initiating data transfer to authorities." "No," Thomas shouted, but it was too late. In seconds, all exits to the room were blocked by security gates, and the men he had positioned to protect him were quickly subdued by Jorge's team. "Sophia," Lucas called, worried. "You knew about all this from the beginning?" She smiled sadly. "In my dreams, I saw all the possibilities. This was the only one that saved not just us, but all the other children too." Thomas, cornered, began to laugh hysterically. "You think it's over? The research project is bigger than all of us. There are others in other places, continuing the work." "Not anymore," Sophia declared with frightening certainty. "At this moment, police teams are raiding 5 secret facilities in 3 different states. All children will be freed. Everyone involved will be arrested." Helena stepped forward, showing her police badge. She had never been just a social worker. "Thomas Richter, you're under arrest for multiple crimes, including kidnapping, identity fraud." While the police handcuffed Thomas and his accomplices, Lucas knelt beside Sophia. "How did you manage to organize all this?" "Not alone," she smiled, exhausted. "Daddy left all the clues, the whole plan. We just needed the right person to put the pieces together." She touched the fragments of the necklace on the floor. and we needed them to think they had won, so they could lose completely. As the police led Thomas and his accomplices away, Lucas's office in the LM Tech building had become an impromptu command center. Sophia sat quietly in a corner, exhausted but alert, while Helena and Jorge coordinated with authorities. 23 children rescued so far, Helena reported, her voice low to avoid disturbing Sophia. All with different special abilities. Some can foresee events like Sophia, others have different types of extraordinary perception. Lucas massaged his temples, still processing the magnitude of what they had discovered. And they were all part of the research project? Not exactly, Helena explained, opening a folder. The project was broader. Thomas, or Ricardo, was trying to create an interface between these children's special abilities and artificial intelligence. He believed he could create a neural network capable of predicting and controlling the future. That's why he needed Sophia's DNA, Lucas concluded. Gabriel must have discovered this and created the biometric lock to prevent the system from being used this way. Your brother was smarter than they imagined, Helena smiled softly. He not only protected the system, but left a trail of evidence that allowed us to locate all the secret facilities. Sophia stirred on the sofa, murmuring something in her sleep. Lucas adjusted the blanket over her with care. And what about the other children? He asked. What happens to them now? Some have families who have been looking for them for years. Others, Helena hesitated, others have no one. Lucas observed his goddaughter sleeping and made a decision. LM Tech has resources. We can create a foundation, a safe place for these children, not just to shelter them, but to understand and develop their gifts ethically. Already dreaming about that? Sophia asked softly, her eyes still closed. I thought you were sleeping, Lucas smiled. I was, she sat up, rubbing her eyes, but I had another dream. I saw a big place with gardens and classrooms. I saw other children like me learning to use their gifts to help people. Helena leaned forward, interested. And this place, did you see where it would be? Sophia nodded. In grandmother's old house in the countryside, that huge mansion that's been abandoned for years. She looked at Lucas. In my dreams, it transforms into a place of light. Lucas felt a lump in his throat. The old family mansion where he and Gabriel had grown up had been closed since their parents' passing. It was a place full of memories, some painful, others precious. The Mendonça Foundation, he murmured, testing the name. A place for special children to develop their gifts safely and ethically. With proper scientific research and constant supervision, Helena added, we could create an ethics board, establish protocols, and use technology for good, Sophia completed, like Daddy always wanted. Jorge entered quietly, carrying an old box. Sir, we found this in Ricardo's safe. I think you'll want to see this. Inside the box were dozens of letters, all written by Gabriel in the months before his disappearance. Letters addressed to Lucas that had never been delivered. He tried to warn you in so many ways, Sophia said softly, watching her godfather leaf through the letters with trembling hands. But now we can do everything differently. We can honor his dream. Lucas pulled Sophia into a tight hug, feeling the weight of years of regret begin to dissipate. The research project money, which before seemed like a weight on his conscience, was now transforming into an instrument of real change, not just in renovations and physical improvements, but in dignity, hope, and opportunities. You know, Jorge said, breaking the contemplative silence, I spent years thinking success meant having more than others. Now I understand that true success is being able to share. The afternoon sun was setting over São Paulo, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. Sophia walked to the window, her reflection mixing with the colors of the horizon. Uncle Lucas? She called softly. Yes, little one? In my new dreams, I don't see shadows anymore, only light. Lucas joined her at the window, watching the city that had witnessed so many changes in their lives. The future unfolding before them was different from anything he had ever imagined, more complex, more challenging, but also infinitely more meaningful. The old warehouse next to LM Tech, which previously served as a storage facility, had been transformed into a welcoming and vibrant space. Newly installed shelves displayed colorful books, work tables occupied the center, and a small stage for storytelling dominated one corner. It was the new home of the Foundation's first project. Beatrice walked through the space, touching each piece of furniture, reliving memories while simultaneously creating new ones. On the walls, drawings by the children from the rescued facilities mixed with photos of their recovery process, creating a bridge between past and present. "What do you think?" asked Lucas, who was observing from the door. "It's perfect," she answered, turning with teary eyes. "Different from what we had before, but in a good way, as if it had grown along with us." Sophia entered running into the space, followed by a group of children. Each carried a handmade notebook, a gift from Helena to record their stories. "Uncle Lucas, look what Maria drew," she exclaimed, showing a colorful drawing. "She said the Foundation helped her find her voice again." Lucas smiled, examining the drawing carefully. It showed a group of children holding hands in a circle, with a bright sun above them. In the corner, Maria had written, "Where dreams come true." Helena approached with more news. Several companies had shown interest in supporting similar programs in other cities. The Foundation's model was beginning to spread. "It's like ripples in a pond," commented Sophia, arranging some books on a shelf. "Each good action creates more good actions." Maria, a shy girl who had been one of the first rescued children, approached with a small bouquet of flowers from the garden they had started together. "I never thought I could draw again," she said, softly, "after everything. But Sophia showed me that art can heal." Lucas observed the interaction with pride. In just a few months, his goddaughter had gone from a scared child to a natural leader who helped others find their strength. "You know what the best part is?" Sophia asked, organizing a new art session. "That we're not just helping these children, we're creating a new family." Regina, who had become the Foundation's coordinator, entered with exciting news. Their model had been recognized by the Education Ministry as an example of social transformation through art and education. "But the most beautiful thing," she said, watching the children paint, "is seeing how each person who comes here finds their own way to shine." Sophia was helping a new girl mix colors when Lucas noticed something interesting. The girl who had arrived terrified and silent just a week ago was now smiling as she created her first painting. "That's how healing works," Sophia explained, seeing her godfather's observation. "Sometimes we need someone to show us that it's okay to try again." Later that afternoon, while the children presented their artwork to their families, Lucas found Sophia in the reading corner, surrounded by books. "Daddy would have loved this," she said, looking around at what they had built. "He always said that knowledge should be shared, not locked away." Lucas sat beside her, feeling an immense gratitude for how his life had changed. The man who once measured success in profit margins and market shares now found his greatest joy in children's smiles and recovered dreams. "Sophia," he said softly, "I need to tell you something." She looked at him curiously. "The board approved the expansion. We're going to open 5 more centers like this one next year." Sophia's eyes lit up. "In my dream, I saw them. One will be in a small town where there's a girl who can sing to plants and make them grow. Another." Lucas listened, amazed at how naturally she spoke of these extraordinary abilities now. The fear that once shadowed her eyes when mentioning her gift had been replaced by confidence and purpose. "And you know what else?" he added. "We're going to start a research program, ethical, transparent, and focused on understanding and helping children like you. No more secrets, no more hidden facilities." Sophia hugged him tightly. "That's what Daddy always wanted, to use knowledge to help, not to control." As the sun set outside, casting long shadows through the large windows, Lucas watched the children, saying goodbye to their families. Each one carried a piece of art they had created, a symbol of their healing journey. Sophia stood beside him, her small hand in his. "Sometimes," she said thoughtfully, "the best dreams are not the ones that show us the future, but the ones that help us create it. Lucas squeezed her hand gently, knowing that this was just the beginning of their story. The foundation would continue to grow, touching more lives, creating more opportunities for healing and growth. And at its heart would always be the wisdom of a small girl who had taught him that the greatest power comes not from control, but from love. The Mendonça family mansion in the countryside of São Paulo, closed for so many years, now buzzed with activity. Workers came and went, removing years of dust and bringing new life to the place. Sophia walked through the familiar corridors she knew only from her dreams, her small fingers tracing patterns on the freshly painted walls. Lucas followed her, observing how she seemed to know every corner, every detail of the house. "This was Daddy's room," she said, stopping in front of a carved oak door. "And there," she pointed to an almost invisible mark on the wall, "was where you and he recorded your heights when you were little." Lucas approached, running his fingers over the old marks. "How do you know so much about this place?" "Daddy used to tell me stories every night," she smiled, her eyes distant with memories. "And then in my dreams I saw more, as if the house wanted me to know its history." Helena, who had insisted on coming to supervise the restoration, appeared in the corridor carrying architectural plans. "Sophia, dear, we need your help. The architects want to know where the special room you mentioned will be." "The dream room," Sophia corrected gently, taking Helena's hand. "Come, I'll show you." She led them to an old library on the 3rd floor. The room was circular, with tall windows that let in natural light from all sides. "Here," Sophia said with conviction. "This is where children will learn to understand their gifts. In my dreams, I see colorful cushions on the floor, walls with soft colors, and an energy. A good energy." Helena, who had arrived earlier with news about the rescued children, joined them. "Speaking of children," she began, consulting her tablet, "the first 5 are ready to be transferred as soon as we have the basic structure ready. They're all orphans or from families that—" She hesitated, looking at Sophia. "That didn't accept them for being different," Sophia completed softly. "I know. I saw some of them in my dreams." Lucas knelt beside his goddaughter. "Are you sure you're ready for this? Having other children here sharing your space?" Sophia smiled with that wise smile that seemed far beyond her years. "It's not about sharing space, Uncle Lucas. It's about creating a family for those who never had one." "Like you." "For so long," Helena murmured, her eyes moist. "But now I have you," Sophia answered, hugging her. "And soon other children will too." One of the architects approached with a technical question, and Lucas moved away to resolve the issue. While they discussed renovation details and adaptations, Sophia remained in the library, her eyes fixed on the high windows. "I see you," she whispered softly. Helena, who was still nearby, frowned. "Who are you talking to, dear?" "The first one," Sophia answered mysteriously. "She's coming. The girl who sees through other people's dreams." As if responding to her words, Helena's phone rang. After a brief conversation, she turned to the group with a surprised expression. One of the rescued children, Julia, 10 years old. She woke up today asking to come here, said she dreamed of a girl in a white dress who was calling her. Lucas observed his goddaughter with a mixture of admiration and wonder. Even after everything they had experienced, she still managed to surprise him. "When does she arrive?" he asked. "Tomorrow," Sophia answered before Helena could check her notes. "And after her comes the boy who can feel others' emotions. And after—" "One at a time," Lucas smiled, taking her hand. "We'll build this right with calm and care." Sophia nodded, but her eyes sparkled with the certainty of what was to come. "You know, Uncle Lucas, sometimes dreams aren't about seeing the future. They're about creating one." Helena wiped a discreet tear while organizing her notes. "And what a beautiful future we're creating here." The afternoon progressed, bathing the old library in golden tones. Soon that space would be filled with children's voices, with discoveries and learning. A place where special gifts wouldn't be a reason for fear or isolation, but for celebration and development. The next morning dawned with a different energy at the Mendonça mansion. Sophia, wearing a light blue dress chosen especially for the occasion, sat on the front entrance steps, her eyes fixed on the gravel path leading to the gates. "She's nervous," Lucas commented to Helena, watching his goddaughter from the porch. "I'm not nervous," Sophia responded, without taking her eyes off the gate. "I'm waiting, there's a difference." Helena stepped out of the house carrying a tray with freshly baked cookies. "I thought our visitors might be hungry after their journey." "Julia likes chocolate," Sophia said softly. "And Mateus, who will come next week, prefers vanilla." Helena checked her notes, surprised. "How do you know about Mateus? We haven't even finalized his paperwork yet." Sophia finally turned, a small smile on her lips. "In my dreams, I already know them all. Each one has a different story. But together," she paused, searching for the right words, "together we form a complete puzzle." The sound of an approaching car made everyone turn their attention to the gate. Sophia stood up, nervously adjusting her dress. Apparently, she wasn't as calm as she wanted to appear. The vehicle stopped, and a girl of approximately 10 years old stepped out, with brown hair tied in a disheveled braid. Her eyes, large and frightened, scanned the mansion's facade until they found Sophia. "You," Julia whispered, taking a hesitant step forward, "you were in my dreams." Sophia descended the steps calmly. "And you were in mine. You see other people's dreams, don't you? Like little colorful movies floating around people." Julia nodded, silent tears rolling down her face. "Nobody ever understood. They thought I was different," Sophia completed, extending her hand. "But here, being different is being special." The two girls met halfway down the path, and when their hands touched, something extraordinary happened. For a brief moment, everyone present could see small colored lights dancing around them, like miniature northern lights. "Those are the dreams," Julia explained, amazed. "I've never been able to see them so clearly before." "Because now you're not alone anymore," Sophia smiled. Lucas watched the scene with his heart tight, remembering how Sophia had arrived in his life, a small, lonely figure screaming at the airport. Now, she was helping other children find their place in the world. Helena approached discreetly. "Lucas, there's something you need to see." She extended a folder. "We found more documents about Gabriel's original project. It seems he always planned to transform this house into a refuge." Lucas leafed through the papers, recognizing his brother's handwriting. Plans, notes, ideas for creating a safe space for children with special gifts. At the top of one of the pages, a phrase was circled. "The future is not something we predict. It's something we build." "He knew," Lucas murmured. "Even before Sophia was born, he was already planning all this." "And now you're fulfilling his dream," Helena commented, joining them with her cookie tray. In the garden, Sophia was showing Julia the newly planted flower beds. The two girls talked animatedly, their initial fears and differences already forgotten in the ease of childhood friendship. "Come," Sophia called, waving to the adults. "Julia needs to see the dream room." As they climbed the stairs toward the old library, now transformed into a welcoming and magical space, Lucas noticed how his goddaughter seemed different. There were no more shadows in her eyes, only the light of hope and possibility. "Uncle Lucas," she called, stopping at the top of the stairs. "Can you feel it?" "What, little one?" "The house," she smiled. "It's happy, as if it knew it's finally fulfilling its destiny." Julia closed her eyes, concentrated. "She's right. I can see the house's dreams too. They're old and new at the same time." "Like us," Sophia concluded, taking her new friend's hand. "An old family starting a new story." The days that followed brought a flurry of activity to the mansion. Sophia and Julia had become inseparable, working together to prepare for the arrival of more children. The dream room was taking shape, with soft cushions in calming colors and gentle lights that created an atmosphere of peace and safety. One morning, while helping Helena organize the new library, Sophia suddenly stopped, her hands frozen midway, through shelving a book. "He's coming today," she said softly. "Mateus, earlier than planned." Helena checked her tablet, confused. "But his transfer isn't scheduled until next week." He ran away from the temporary shelter, Julia added, her eyes closed as she read the dreams floating around them. He's scared because his gift is overwhelming him. Too many emotions from too many people. Lucas, who had just entered the library with architectural plans, immediately switched into action mode. "Where is he, Sophia?" "At the old train station," she replied. "Hiding in the maintenance shed. He's hungry and cold." "I'll go get him," Lucas said, already reaching for his car keys. "No," Sophia stopped him. "Let me and Julia go. He's afraid of adults right now. In my dream, I saw that he only trusts other children like him." Lucas hesitated. The idea of sending the girls alone didn't sit well with him, but he had learned to trust Sophia's insights. "Jorge can drive you and wait in the car," he compromised, "but you have to promise to be careful." The old train station was only 15 minutes from the mansion. When they arrived, Sophia and Julia walked hand in hand toward the maintenance shed, their steps sure and purposeful. "Mateus," Sophia called, softly, "you can come out. We're like you." A small movement came from behind some old crates. A boy of about 9 emerged, his curly hair wild and his clothes dirty from travel. His eyes were red from crying. "How do you know my name?" he asked, his voice trembling. "The same way you know what we're feeling right now," Julia answered gently. "We're special too." Mateus studied them for a moment, his gift allowing him to sense their sincerity. "You're not afraid of me," he said, surprised. "Everyone else is always afraid." "Because they don't understand," Sophia extended her hand. "But we do, and we have a place where you'll be safe, where you can learn to control your gift instead of letting it control you." Back at high, the mansion. Helena had already prepared a room for Mateus and arranged for clean clothes and a hot meal. The boy was initially overwhelmed by all the attention, but Sophia and Julia helped him find his balance. "Focus on us," Sophia instructed, sitting with him in the dream room. "Our emotions are stable, calm. Use them as an anchor when the others get too loud." Lucas watched from the doorway as the 3 children worked together, teaching and supporting each other. It was amazing how naturally they had fallen into their roles. "They're healing each other," Helena observed softly. "Each one's gift complementing the others." That evening during dinner, Mateus spoke for the first time since arriving. "I can feel the house," he said quietly. "It's full of hope. I've never felt anything like it before." Sophia smiled. "That's because it's been waiting for us, all of us." Later, after the children had gone to bed, Lucas found Sophia in the library looking through old photo albums. "Are you worried about tomorrow?" he asked, sitting beside her. "No," she replied, tracing a photo of her father as a young man. "Just thinking about how everything is connected, how Daddy knew this would happen, even if he didn't live to see it. He would be proud of you," Lucas squeezed her shoulder gently, "of how you're helping these children." "I know," Sophia looked up at him with those wise eyes. "But I'm not doing it alone. You gave up everything. Your old life, your companies, direction, your plans, to make this happen." Lucas thought about his life before Sophia, about the lonely man focused only on profit and power. "I didn't give up anything," he said softly. "I gained everything. That really matters." A small noise at the door made them look up. Julia and Mateus stood there in their pajamas, looking uncertain. "We couldn't sleep," Julia explained. "The dreams are very active tonight." "And the emotions are buzzing," Mateus added. "Like something big is coming." Sophia nodded, making space for them on the couch. "Because tomorrow, more children arrive, and each one will bring new colors to our rainbow." As the children huddled together, sharing their gifts and supporting each other, Lucas felt an overwhelming sense of rightness. This was what the mansion had been meant for all along, not just a home, but a sanctuary where special children could learn, grow, and heal together. Dawn had barely broken when the mansion began stirring with anticipation. Today, 3 more children would arrive, each with their own unique gifts, each carrying their own burdens of fear and loneliness. Sophia stood at the window of the dream room, watching the sun rise over the gardens. Julia sat cross-legged on a cushion nearby, her eyes closed as she sorted through the dreams that swirled around the house. Matthias had positioned himself by the door, gradually adjusting to the increasing emotional energy of the awakening household. "They're scared," Matthias said softly. "The new ones. I can feel their fear, even from far away. But there's hope too," Julia added without opening her eyes. "Little sparks of gold in their dreams." Sophia turned from the window. "That's because deep down, they know they're coming, home, even if they don't understand it yet." Helena arrived with breakfast trays for the children, fresh bread, fruit, and hot chocolate. She had learned that mornings were easier for Matthias when they started with familiar comforts. "The first car will be here in about an hour," she announced, checking her tablet. "Anna is coming first. She's the one with telekinetic abilities." "We need to be careful with her arrival," Sophia warned. "She's not used to controlling her gift when she's emotional. Things tend to fly around." As if to demonstrate the point, she picked up a cushion and tossed it gently to Matthias. "That's why we cleared all the breakable things from the entry hall." Lucas joined them, carrying architectural plans for the next phase of renovations. "Should we postpone the construction work then?" "No," Sophia shook her head. "Anna needs to learn that not everything has to be perfectly controlled. Sometimes, a little chaos is okay as long as no one gets hurt." The sound of tires on gravel announced the first arrival. Through the window, they could see a small girl with elaborate braids being helped out of a car. Even from a distance, the tension in her body was visible. "Let me go first," Sophia said, already heading for the stairs. "I know exactly what to say." The others watched from the dream room window as Sophia approached Anna in the garden. Before anyone could react, a gust of wind swept through the area, lifting leaves and small objects into the air around the frightened girl. But Sophia kept walking calmly forward. "The flowers are beautiful when they dance, aren't they?" she said, her voice carrying clearly in the morning air, like they're saying welcome home. The flying objects slowed their frantic movement, beginning to drift more gently. Anna looked at Sophia with a mixture of surprise and hope. "You're not scared?" she asked in a small voice. "Of course not," Sophia smiled. "Come see what I can do." Inside the mansion, the day continued to unfold with its own kind of magic. Each new arrival brought their own energy to the house. After Anna came Pedro, who could communicate with animals. He arrived with a sparrow perched determinedly on his shoulder. The bird refused to leave even after they got inside. "He can stay," Sophia assured Pedro. "We have special perches set up in the garden. Daddy always said that every gift deserves respect, even the ones we don't fully understand." The last arrival of the day was Maria, a tiny girl who could sing colors into being. Her gift was perhaps the most visible of all. When she hummed, soft hues would appear in the air around her, painting her emotions for all to see. By evening, the mansion hummed with new energy. The children had naturally gravitated to the dream room, where Sophia, Julia, and Matthias helped the newcomers begin to understand and accept their gifts. "Watch," Sophia instructed, sitting with them in a circle. "When we're together, our gifts don't just exist side by side, they dance together." As if to prove her point, Maria began to hum softly. Her colors appeared in the air, swirling gently. Anna, growing more confident, guided the colors into patterns while Pedro's sparrow flew through them, creating trails of light. Matthias closed his eyes, absorbing and reflecting the peace and wonder everyone felt, while Julia described the beautiful dreams taking shape around them. Lucas and Helena watched from the doorway, amazed at how naturally the children worked together. "It's extraordinary," Helena whispered. "They're not just learning to control their gifts, they're learning to celebrate them." "That's because Sophia understood something we adults missed," Lucas replied softly. "These aren't burdens to be managed, they're gifts to be shared." Later that night, after the new children had been settled into their rooms, Lucas found Sophia sitting in the garden. She was watching the stars come out, her expression thoughtful. "You did wonderfully today," he said, sitting beside her. "It's just the beginning," she replied, her voice full of quiet certainty. "There are more out there, Uncle Lucas, more children who need to find their way home. And we'll help them all," he promised, one at a time, one day at a time. Sophia leaned against him, her small frame relaxing. "You know what's funny? Everyone thinks I'm helping these children, but really, they're helping me too. Each new gift that comes here makes all of us stronger." Above them, the stars continued to emerge, each one a point of light in the darkness. Just like each child in the mansion was a point of light in their own unique way, coming together to create something beautiful and new. The mansion's routine had settled into a gentle rhythm. Each morning began with breakfast in the large kitchen, where the children gathered around the old wooden table. Maria's soft humming would fill the air with gentle colors, while Anna practiced controlling her gift by carefully levitating sugar cubes into everyone's tea. Pedro's birds would perch on the windowsills, creating a cheerful morning chorus. But this morning was different. Sophia woke earlier than usual, her eyes bright with anticipation. "Something's going to happen today," she announced during breakfast. "Something important." Julia closed her eyes, sorting through the dreams that floated around them. The dreams are stronger today, like they're all pointing to something. The emotions too, Mateus added, setting down his toast. They're shimmering. Helena entered the kitchen with her tablet, but before she could speak, Sophia turned to her. "It's about Thomas, isn't it?" The adults exchanged glances. They had been careful not to discuss the ongoing investigation around the children, but of course, Sophia would know. "Yes," Helena confirmed. "He's agreed to talk, to tell us about the other facilities, about the other children." Lucas, who had been watching the exchange silently, noticed how the younger children tensed at the mention of Thomas. Maria's colors turned dark and stormy, while Anna's anxiety caused the silverware to rattle slightly. "It's okay," Sophia said firmly, standing up. "This is good news, because now we can help the others too." "But Sophia," Lucas began cautiously, "we need to be careful. Thomas might be trying to manipulate the situation." Sophia shook her head. "No, he's truly broken. I saw it in my dreams. He realized that what he did was wrong and now he wants to make amends." "How can you be sure?" Helena asked. "Because of what happened in his cell last night," Julia spoke. "Up suddenly. I saw it in his dreams. He had a vision of all the children he hurt, but instead of fear, they showed him forgiveness. It changed something in him." Mateus nodded. "His emotions are different now. The darkness is still there, but there's also regret. Real regret." Lucas marveled at how the children worked together, each gift providing a piece of the puzzle. "What do you think we should do?" "We need to go see him," Sophia said simply. "Not all of us, just me, Julia, and Mateus. He needs to see what happens when our gifts are nurtured with love instead of fear." "Absolutely not," Lucas and Helena said simultaneously. "Listen," Sophia insisted, her voice carrying that old wisdom that still surprised them. "Some wounds can only be healed by those who were hurt, and some truths can only be seen through children's eyes." The room fell silent as everyone considered her words. Even the birds stopped their morning songs, as if sensing the importance of the moment. "She's right," Maria said suddenly, her voice small but firm. Her colors had shifted to deep, thoughtful blues. "They're the bridge between what was and what could be." Lucas looked at the children, not just Sophia, Julia, and Mateus, but all of them. Each face showed determination mixed with compassion. These children, who had every reason to be bitter and afraid, were choosing forgiveness and hope instead. "If we do this," he said finally, "there will be conditions, strict security, and at the first sign of trouble." "There won't be," Sophia assured him. "Trust me, Uncle Lucas. Sometimes the bravest thing we can do is show kindness to those who didn't show it to us." Helena began making arrangements on her tablet, her fingers flying over the screen. "We'll need special permissions, security clearances." "Already taken care of," Julia interrupted with a small smile. "I saw in my dreams that you submitted the requests last week. They'll be approved this morning." As the adults worked out the logistics, Sophia gathered Julia and Mateus in the dream room. They sat in their usual circle, But this time there was a new purpose to their practice. "We need to be strong together," she explained. "Not just our gifts, but our hearts too, because today isn't about punishment or revenge, it's about healing, his and ours." Through the window, the morning sun cast long shadows across the floor, but they didn't seem dark or threatening. Instead, they reminded Lucas of bridges between past and present, between hurt and healing, between fear and hope. The holding facility where Thomas was being kept was a stark contrast to the warm, welcoming atmosphere of the mansion. But as Sophia, Julia, and Matthias walked down the sterile corridor, accompanied by Lucas and Helena, they carried that warmth with them, like a protective shield. "He's afraid," Matthias whispered, his gift picking up the emotions ahead. "Not of us, of himself." "The dreams are chaotic," Julia added, "like broken mirrors, showing him all his mistakes." Sophia squeezed both their hands. "That's why we're here, to help him put the pieces back together, not to make things the way they were, but to create something new." When they entered the visiting room, Thomas looked up from the table where he sat. His expensive suits were gone, replaced by standard-issue clothes that seemed too big for his now diminished frame. But it was his eyes that showed the biggest change. The cold calculation had been replaced by something raw and vulnerable. "Sophia," he breathed, his voice rough with emotion. "Julia, Matthias, I didn't expect—" "Yes, you did," Sophia said gently, sitting across from him. "You've been dreaming about us." Thomas's hands trembled on the table. "How can you even look at me? After everything We're not here to talk about the past," Julia interrupted softly. "We're here about the future, about the others who still need help." Matthias, who had been quiet, suddenly spoke up. "Your guilt is like a storm, but underneath there's something else, something that wants to grow." Thomas looked at each child in turn, his eyes filling with tears. "I thought I was doing something great, creating a better world through your gifts. But I was wrong. So terribly wrong." "You forgot the most important thing," Sophia said. "That gifts are meant to be given freely, not taken by force. That power without love is just another kind of prison." "Show us," Julia encouraged. "Show us where the others are. Not because we make you, but because you choose to." Thomas closed his eyes, tears rolling down his cheeks. "There's a facility in the mountains, hidden in an old resort, and another near the coast disguised as a private school. The children there, they're so scared, so alone." As he spoke, Julia's eyes widened. "I can see them in your memories. Their dreams call out like beacons. Their emotions echo yours," Matthias added. "The same pain, the same longing to be understood." Sophia reached across the table, her small hand covering Thomas's much larger one. The gesture was so unexpected, so gentle, that he broke down completely. "I need you to understand something," Sophia said, her voice carrying that ancient wisdom. "What you did was wrong. The pain you caused was real. But holding on to that pain won't help anyone, not you, not the children who are still waiting to be found." "How?" Thomas choked out. "How did you become so wise?" Julia suggested. "Because we were loved, because Uncle Lucas and Helena and everyone at the mansion showed us that our gifts aren't weapons or tools. They're parts of who we are. And now," Matthias continued, "we can show others the same thing, even you." Lucas and Helena watched from the corner, amazed at the transformation taking place before them. The man who had once tried to exploit these children's gifts was now being healed by those very same gifts, freely given. "I'll tell you everything," Thomas said finally, wiping his eyes. "Every location, every name. Not for any deal or reduced sentence, but because it's right. Because those children deserve what you have now." Sophia nodded, a small smile playing at her lips. "That's the first step. The dreams told me you would choose this path." "What dreams?" Thomas asked. "The ones you've been having," Julia explained. "About a house full of light, where special children learn and grow together. Those weren't just dreams. They were glimpses of what we're building, what you can help us build even from here." As they left the facility later that day, Lucas noticed how the children seemed lighter, as if sharing their forgiveness had lifted a weight from their own hearts. "You know what's remarkable?" Helena said softly. "They didn't just get information from him, they gave him something too." "Hope," Sophia replied simply. "Sometimes that's the greatest gift of all." The weeks following Thomas's confession brought whirlwind changes to the mansion. With the information he provided, more children were being found and rescued. Each new arrival brought their own unique gifts and challenges, but also their own contributions to the growing family. One morning, Sophia sat in the dream room with Lucas and Helena, going through the files of the newest children who would be joining them. "This one," she said, pointing to a photograph. "Laura, she can heal plants. When she comes, we'll need to expand the garden." Helena made a note on her tablet. "And the twins from Rio?" "Marcus and Marina," Sophia nodded. "They share dreams, not like Julia, who sees others' dreams. They actually dream together. They'll need a special room where they can sleep near each other." Lucas watched his goddaughter with pride. The scared little girl from the airport had blossomed into a natural leader, helping each new child find their place in their unique family. "Uncle Lucas," Sophia looked up suddenly, her expression serious. "There's something else we need to talk about. Something from Daddy's old study." Julia and Matthias appeared in the doorway, as if they'd been waiting for this moment. "We found it last night," Julia said, "in our dream explorations." "Found what?" Lucas asked. "A hidden compartment," Matthias explained. "Behind the old bookshelf. The emotions coming from it are important." Sophia stood up. "It's time. Will you come with us?" They followed the children to Gabriel's old study, a room that had been largely untouched during the mansion's renovation. Sophia walked directly to a particular bookshelf, running her small hands along its edge. "Here," she said, pressing a nearly invisible catch. With a soft click, a panel swung open, revealing a small safe. Lucas felt his heart skip a beat. "I never knew this was here." "Daddy put it here before everything happened," Sophia said softly. "He knew someday we would need what's inside." "The combination," Julia added, her eyes closed as she read the lingering dreams in the far room. "It's Sophia's birthday." With trembling fingers, Sophia entered the numbers. The safe door opened with a gentle hiss, revealing a stack of journals and a sealed envelope addressed to Lucas. "These are Daddy's research notes," Sophia explained, carefully lifting out the journals. "Not the ones Thomas and his people knew about. These are the real ones about how our gifts really work." Lucas opened the envelope, finding a letter in his brother's familiar handwriting. "Dear Lucas, if you're reading this, it means Sophia has found her way to you, just as I always knew she would. The research these people think they're doing, it's all wrong. They see these gifts as tools to be controlled, weapons to be wielded, but there's so much more. These children aren't anomalies to be studied or powers to be harnessed. They're beacons of hope in a world that desperately needs magic and wonder. Their gifts aren't meant to control or predict the future. They're meant to help create a better one. The mansion was never just a family home. I designed it, from the very beginning, to be a sanctuary, a place where special children could learn not just to control their gifts, but to celebrate them. A place where they could be family to each other. Take care of Sophia. She's more special than even she knows, not just because of her gift, but because of her heart. And Lucas, thank you for becoming the man I always knew you could be." Betrayal. Lucas had to sit down, overwhelmed by his brother's words. Sophia came to stand beside him, placing her small hand on his shoulder. "Daddy knew," she said softly. "He knew you'd change, that you'd help us create something beautiful here." "But how?" Lucas asked, his voice rough with emotion. "How could he know?" "Because he had a gift too," Julia said. "Not like ours, but special in its own way. He could see the goodness in people, even when they couldn't see it themselves." Matthias nodded. "The whole house is filled with his love. I can feel it in every room, every corner. It's what makes this place so special." Helena, who had been quietly examining the journals, looked up with wide eyes. "Lucas, these notes, they're extraordinary. Gabriel wasn't just studying the children's gifts, he was creating a whole new way of understanding them, a way that nurtures instead of exploits. Sophia carefully took one of the journals, opening it to a marked page. "Look at this," she said. "Daddy's drawings of the dream room. He designed it even before I was born. He knew exactly what we would need." The discovery of Gabriel's journal sparked a new phase in the mansion's evolution. His detailed notes provided insights that helped them understand each child's gifts better, making it easier to help new arrivals adjust and thrive. One afternoon, while the children were having their daily practice session in the dream room, an unexpected visitor arrived at the mansion. Thomas's lawyer, carrying a thick envelope. "He wanted you to have this," the lawyer explained to Lucas. "He's been working on it since your visit." Inside the envelope were detailed maps and documents revealing the locations of even more facilities they hadn't known about. But more importantly, there were letters, dozens of them, addressed to each child Thomas had hurt, asking for forgiveness, but not expecting it. "Should we show these to the children?" Helena asked softly. "Yes," Sophia answered from the doorway. No one had heard her approach. "They need to see that change is possible, that even the deepest darkness can choose light." Lucas studied his goddaughter's face. "You knew about these letters, didn't you?" She nodded. "I saw them in my dreams. They're part of the healing, not just for us, but for everyone involved." That evening, they gathered all the children in the dream room. Maria's gentle humming filled the air with soft, soothing colors as Julia and Mateus helped the others process their emotions about the letters. "You don't have to forgive him," Sophia explained to the group. "That's not what this is about. It's about understanding that people can change, can choose to be better." A small girl named Clara, one of their newest arrivals, raised her hand. "Is that why we're here? To help people change?" "We're here to help people understand," Julia answered. "To show them that being different isn't something to fear." "And to learn from each other," Mateus added. "Every new person who comes here brings something special to our family." Lucas watched from the doorway as the children discussed the letters, amazed at their capacity for understanding and compassion. These kids, who had every reason to be bitter and mistrustful, were choosing to see the possibility of good in others. Helena approached with her tablet. "The last facility has been found," she said quietly. "All the children are being rescued as we speak." "How many?" Lucas asked. 12 more. They'll need homes, support." "They'll have it," Sophia said firmly, joining them. "That's why the mansion is so big. Daddy knew we'd need the space." As if to confirm her words, Pedro's birds suddenly began singing outside, a chorus of joyful whistles and trills. Through the windows they could see new colors blooming in the garden, Laura's gift at work, helping the plants grow and flourish. "You know what's remarkable?" Helena mused. "When we started this, we thought we were creating a school, a safe haven, but it's become so much more. It's become what it was always meant to be," Sophia smiled. "A place where gifts aren't just powers to be controlled, but lights to be shared." That night, after the younger children had gone to bed, Lucas found Sophia sitting in Gabriel's study, carefully reading through one of the journals. "Daddy wrote about this moment too," she said without looking up. "About how the mansion would be full of light and laughter, about how children who were once afraid of their gifts would learn to celebrate them." Lucas sat beside her. He saw so much. "He saw you, Uncle Lucas. The you that you would become." She turned the page, revealing a sketch of the mansion as it looked now, full of life and purpose. He knew that sometimes the biggest changes start with the smallest choices. Through the open window, the evening breeze carried the scent of the blooming garden and the distant sound of children's laughter. The mansion, once so empty and silent, now pulsed with life and possibility. "You know what I've learned?" Sophia said thoughtfully. "That gifts aren't just about seeing the future or healing plants or feeling emotions. They're about connecting. Hearts about helping each other grow." Lucas pulled his goddaughter close. "Your father would be so proud of what you've created here." "What we've created," she corrected gently. "All of us, together. Because that's the real magic, isn't it? Not what we can do alone, but what we can do when we share our gifts with love. Spring had come to the mansion, transforming the grounds into a riot of color and life. Laura's gift had turned the gardens into something almost magical, with flowers blooming in patterns that seemed to dance in the breeze. Pedro's birds had built nests throughout the property, filling the air with joyful song. Inside, the mansion hummed with activity as they prepared for a special celebration 1 year since. Sophia had stopped Lucas at the airport, changing both their lives forever. Everything needs to be perfect, Sophia instructed, directing a group of children as they decorated the dream room. Maria's colors swirled through the air while Anna carefully levitated decorations into place. The new families arrive tomorrow, Julia reminded everyone, her eyes bright with excitement. I've seen their dreams. They're nervous but hopeful. The new families were a development none of them had expected. As word of the mansion spread, parents of children with gifts had begun reaching out. Some had been hiding their children's abilities, afraid of what might happen if anyone found out. Others had been desperately seeking help, watching their children struggle with powers they didn't understand. Remember when we were scared like that? Mateus asked softly, helping to arrange cushions in a welcoming circle. When we thought our gifts were curses. Sophia paused in her organizing to hug him. That's why tomorrow is so important. We're not just welcoming new children. We're showing their families that being different is something to celebrate. Lucas watched from the doorway, marveling at how far they'd come. The mansion now housed 37 children, each with their own unique gift. But more importantly, each child had found their place in this extraordinary family. Helena approached with her tablet. The last background checks are complete, she reported. All the new families have been vetted. No connections to Thomas or his old network. They're good people, Sophia assured them, just scared and looking for hope, like we all were. Throughout the day, more preparations continued. In the kitchen, the older children helped prepare welcome baskets for each new family. The contents had been carefully chosen based on Julia's dream readings and Mateus's emotional insights. This one needs extra chocolate, Mateus noted, adding more treats to one basket. The mother is especially anxious. And this one should have drawing supplies, Julia added. The little girl dreams in pictures. She might be an artist. As evening approached, Lucas found Sophia in Gabriel's study, looking through the family photo albums they'd recently brought out of storage. Found what you were looking for? He asked. She nodded, holding up a photograph. This is from when Daddy and you were little, your first day at this house. The picture showed 2 young boys standing in front of the mansion, their faces bright with excitement. I remember that day, Lucas said softly, sitting beside her. Everything seemed so big, so full of possibility. That's how the new children will feel tomorrow, Sophia said, scared but excited, ready for a new beginning. They were interrupted by a commotion from downstairs. Racing to the entrance hall, they found an unexpected scene. A small girl, no more than 6, stood in the doorway, her clothes dusty from travel. Behind her, her parents were explaining to Helena how their daughter had insisted they couldn't wait until tomorrow. She said her dreams told her to come now, the mother explained, looking bewildered. Sophia stepped forward, a knowing smile on her face. You're right, she said to the girl. Tonight is when you needed to be here, because tonight is when we prepare the dreams for tomorrow. The girl's eyes widened. You understand? Of course we do, Julia said, coming to join them. We all have gifts here. Would you like to see? What followed was an impromptu demonstration as the mansion's children welcomed their new friend. Maria filled the air with gentle colors, Anna floated a flower over to present to the girl, and Pedro's favorite sparrow flew down to perch briefly on her shoulder. The girl's parents watched in amazement as their daughter, who had been withdrawn and afraid of her abilities, began to smile and then laugh. This is what healing looks like, Sophia explained to Lucas quietly. Not just the children, but their families too. Understanding that gifts don't separate us, they bring us together in new ways. Later that night, after the unexpected guests had been settled into rooms prepared for tomorrow, the original group gathered in the dream room for their evening ritual. Ready for tomorrow? Lucas asked Sophia. She looked around at her found family. Julia reading the dreams that danced in the air, Mateus helping their newest arrival process her emotions, Maria humming gentle colors to soothe everyone's excitement. More than ready, she smiled. Because now we know what Daddy always knew, that the greatest gift isn't what we can do, it's what we can share. The morning of the celebration dawned clear and bright. Sophia stood at her window, watching the sun rise over the gardens where Laura's flowers had arranged themselves into welcoming patterns overnight. Pedro's birds were already singing their morning chorus, while a gentle breeze carried the promise of a perfect day. They're starting to arrive, Julia announced, joining her at the window. Their dreams are like butterflies, all nervous energy and hope. One by one, cars began pulling up the long driveway. From each emerged families, parents, holding their children's hands tightly, older siblings protectively close to younger ones. Some of the children showed visible signs of their gifts. A boy who seemed to flicker with tiny electrical sparks, a girl whose footsteps left momentary frost patterns on the ground. Remember how scared we were? Mateus asked, coming to stand with them. The emotions out there, they're just like ours were. Sophia nodded. That's why we're here, to show them what's possible when you're not afraid anymore. The mansion's current residents had prepared carefully for this moment. As each new family entered, they were greeted by children with similar gifts. The boy with electrical energy was introduced to twins who could manipulate light. The girl with ice powers met Laura, who showed her how beautiful it could be when frost and flowers worked together. In the dream room, now expanded to accommodate their growing numbers, parents sat in small groups, sharing stories and concerns while their children discovered they weren't alone anymore. Watch, Sophia whispered to Lucas, pointing to a corner where a very young girl sat crying softly. Maria approached her, humming gently, her colors wrapping around the girl like a warm embrace. Gradually, the tears stopped, replaced by wonder as she realized she could see the music too. Helena moved among the groups, answering questions and offering reassurance. This isn't just a school, she explained to the parents. It's a community, a place where your children can learn not just to control their gifts, but to celebrate them. Through it all, Lucas watched his goddaughter work. Her own kind of magic, Sophia moved from group to group, somehow knowing exactly what each person needed. A kind word here, a gentle touch there, a demonstration of how beautiful their gifts could be when shared freely. You've created something extraordinary here, one father said to Lucas, watching his son laugh for the first time in months as he played with others who understood him. We all created it together, Lucas replied, remembering Sophia's words from so long ago. That's the real magic. As the day progressed, the initial nervousness gave way to joy and relief. Children who had been isolated discovered friendship. Parents who had felt helpless found support and understanding. The mansion, already full of life, seemed to expand to embrace each new story, each new gift. In the late afternoon, Sophia gathered everyone in the garden for a special moment. Standing in the center of the circle, she looked around at all the faces. The original group who had started this journey with her, the newer arrivals who had found their place here, and now these newest members of their ever-growing family. A year ago, she began, her young voice carrying clearly in the hushed garden. I stood in an airport and made a choice, to trust that someone would listen, would understand, would help. Uncle Lucas made a choice too, to believe in something he couldn't explain, to open his heart to possibilities he never imagined. She paused, smiling at her godfather. That's what this place is about. Not just learning to control our gifts, but learning to trust, to love, to believe in each other. Every person here has a story. Every gift has a purpose. And together we're writing a new chapter, not just for ourselves, but for everyone who ever felt different and alone. As if responding to her words, Maria began to hum, her colors rising into the air. Anna joined in, lifting flower petals to dance in the light. One by one, each child added their gift to the moment. Light, frost, dreams, and emotions weaving together in a display of spontaneous joy. Lucas felt tears in his eyes as he watched. He remembered the lonely businessman he had been, focused only on profit and power. How empty his life had seemed, even surrounded by wealth and success. Now, standing in this garden filled with light and laughter, he understood what true richness meant. Sophia came to stand beside him, slipping her small hand into his. "You know what Daddy wrote in his last journal entry?" she asked softly. "What?" "The future isn't something we predict. It's something we create together, with love and hope and trust in each other." Lucas looked around at what they had created. Not just a school or a sanctuary, but a place where gifts of all kinds could flourish, where differences were celebrated, where love grew stronger with each new arrival. "He was right," Lucas said, squeezing Sophia's hand, "about everything." As the sun began to set, casting golden light through the trees, the mansion seemed to glow from within, not just with light, but with the warmth of understanding, acceptance, and belonging. In the garden, children played and laughed, their gifts intermingling in beautiful ways. Parents who had arrived tense with worry now sat relaxed, sharing stories and hope. And in the middle of it all, Sophia stood with her found family, her heart full of the knowledge that this was just the beginning. There would be more children to find, more gifts to understand, more love to share. But now they knew the truth, that the greatest magic of all lay not in their individual gifts, but in the bonds they created when they shared them freely with open hearts. The dream room would always be there, ready to welcome new arrivals. The gardens would continue to bloom with Laura's special touch. Pedro's birds would sing their morning welcome to each new day. And the mansion, once silent and empty, would remain forever filled with the light of understanding, the warmth of acceptance, and the joy of belonging. For in the end, this was what Gabriel had seen all along, not just a haven for special children, but a beacon of hope, showing the world that differences weren't meant to divide us, but to bring us together in wonderful and unexpected ways.